Welcome back, everyone, to another Seaweed Brain episode covering The Court of the Dead, the brand new Nico D'Angelo adventure by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. We have a brand new guest once again. Stick around.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Hey, the vibes are slipping. I think it's time to bring out the Velveeta shells and cheese. The holidays are a time to go all in on indulgence. Headline your meals with the rich, creamy meltiness of Velveeta shells and cheese and satisfy your holiday cravings like no other. Bring that main course energy to your side dish. Celebrate extra with Velveeta these holidays.
All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Erica, joined as always by my co-host Carter. Carter, what's up? How you doing?
Hi everyone.
Answer my question. How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing okay. Yeah, life is. Yeah, I mean,
Just fine.
Bad stuff happening in general in the world, but I feel that I'm not personally in a position to complain. Yes.
We are welcoming another brand new guest. I don't know how long we're going to keep this up, maybe the entire book, but we're pulling from the pool of podcast patrons for our special guests. They are knowledgeable. We've known many of them for years. We're welcoming them into space. And today we have Amanda. What is up, Amanda? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me.
You've always been of the podcast, but now welcome to being on the podcast.
Heck yeah.
Will you tell us what you told us 30 seconds ago that you do for a job?
Yeah. So right now I'm a beekeeper where I went to university. I stayed on in the internship program and I'm now a mentor in that internship program and I help manage the apiary on campus. Oh, and then come in the new year, I will be starting an internship in the Florida Keys doing ocean acidification research for climate change.
Woo! Please make an elaborate metaphor as to why being a beekeeper makes you a qualified Percy Jackson podcast guest. There are no wrong answers. Go.
Because understanding a beehive, you have to see it as a whole. You have to see it as a superorganism. And I feel the Riordan verse, you have to see the superorganism and how all of these bees and characters flow together and work together to create this space we live in.
Absolutely. I also would have accepted as a climate change researcher, you are preparing for the Riordan verse of madness.
Exactly.
In which climate change is our truest enemy. Brilliant. We're so happy to have you. Tell us about what you thought of The Sun and the Star.
I really loved The Sun and the Star. I was a bit surprised with how emotionally intelligent it got. I did go to the book tour for that in Georgia, and I was just astounded. Like, I was kind of blown away. I think the relationship building was beautifully done, especially between Will and Nico. I thought for teenage boys, that was really emotionally intelligent. And then at the end, obviously, like the dealing with like your inner demons and then of course the puffs and the cacodemons. Like I thought it was like a really nice way to visualize and help all audiences understand themselves and like see it in these characters. And big old queer mess, my idol, of course.
Absolutely. Tell us more about your relationship with Nico. Like, is Nico a favorite of yours? Some people have said that Nico was like the reason they started reading Percy Jackson.
I would say definitely like top 5. Like, love Nico. Just watching him level up through the books was fantastic. I don't think I had as close of an attachment as you did. I know the story with that. I know
me out specifically.
No, but I just held him so dearly, especially as one of the first like openly queer characters, and having the queerness be such a pivotal point for him, I related to so much, especially because I was in middle school with the annual releases of Heroes of Olympus. Like day they came out, finished them in one day, cried at school, and waited a year. And so I was in my own initial queer journey as an early teenager, watching this happen to Nico as well. My special little boy that just so precious, just love him.
Absolutely. I love hearing about people's relationships with Nico in particular, because also just for me personally, I'm curious, when did you start listening to the podcast and how did you find us?
Okay, so one of my best friends had a research position at Duke the summer of 2022. And we went to school in Florida. And so we were like, let's make it a road trip. I drove them up to Duke. And then on the way back, I was like a mess and sobbing and could only find solace in Percy Jackson related media. And so that's when I discovered all the podcasts. And then like really soon after that, I left for my study abroad in New Zealand from like July to December. And so that was like such a comfort, was first Percy Jackson and then other like-minded young Americans at the time. Y'all were like more young than
young.
I am now.
Oh my god! What you saying? At the time we were young, canceled and kicked off of this recording.
I think I'm just a couple years younger than you two, but y'all were still in undergrad when I started listening, and I was
it's the elder demigod section.
Oh my God,
so that's fine.
My counselors.
Oh
yeah. No, I just became quickly so attached. Y'all have been like my favorite sociologist, I've said for ages. Oh, and then I picked up a sociology degree. Yeah, your level of analysis has really like called to me, and I'm like, wow, what would Erica and Carter say about this sometimes, you know?
I too ask myself what Carter would say about things often. The response I usually hear from the little Carter voice in my head is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know about that.
Yeah, very different.
The good Carter voice is, okay. And the evil Carter voice is, I don't know about that. Or maybe vice versa. Maybe the evil one is the one telling me okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, and you never know. You can never know which one. It's a spectrum.
You know when Kronk has the two little Kronks on his shoulder? Precisely like that.
Yes.
Precise.
Yes.
Except little Carters. But in Carter, I hope that if you hear my voice in your head, you see me just as Kronk. I hope I just manifest as Kronk.
Yes.
Real quick for me, because I'm an idiot and I've been doing a really bad job at shouting out our patrons, I'm going to go a quick down the list to everybody who joined our Patreon in the year 2025, just to cover all of my bases, because I don't know if I stopped doing a good job at this. So shout out to Mo, RL, Sage, Laura, Sammy, Ryan, Anna, Charlotte, Ellen, Anbu, Kit Kat, Lauren, Gabby, Rachel, B, Aaliyah, Marco, Amanda, and Morio. Thank you for joining our Patreon, and shout out to James, Izzy, and Ellen for being the highest, fanciest level and helping us to sustain our work here that we do. On that note, Carter, where did we last leave off?
We last left off trying to implement Nico and Will's grand social integration strategy. Specifically, we had done a morning of training with the Legion, and we are about to begin an afternoon of training with the Mythics, and also different parts of the Legion.
This chapter kicks off with a moment of Hazel being the fun police, which I thought was really sad. That there are people, like the members of the Legion are pulling pranks on the members of New Rome by hiding and as bushes and then jumping out and jump scaring them. And Hazel has to go and stop them. Isn't that so sad?
She's too young. She should be at the club.
She should be at the prank club.
She should be laughing with them.
Yeah, she should also be a bush, but alas, she has to go squash that off, and which means that we're not with her. This chapter 9, our training with the Mythics, is with Frank and a handful of members of the second cohort. This is relevant because in general, our rule for Romans, if you might remember, is if they're good, they're probably in the 5th cohort. And by good, we mean anyone who we might have any level of alignment with or fun with.
If they're morally good, is what Carter's saying. Not good at combat necessarily.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Morally good,
Morally
but also
good.
like I think aesthetically good. Like if it's a person who we think would be
pretty?
like pleasant at a bar.
Personality.
Sorry, yeah. Like aesthetic in a sense of like personal attributes that are detached from ethics as opposed to specifically like in the face.
Yeah, not like they're thrifting all the time and like they have really, really awesome fits.
Yeah, maybe that as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm preemptively apprehensive about this training session. There are very detailed descriptions. We are really committing to lots of comedy bits here. We have Orcus and Quinoa, who are both small. And in the case of Orcus, doesn't have hands, attempting to engage in mock sword fighting combat with Roman legionnaires for some reason. Why is this the bonding strategy? It's not clear to me why specifically we're sword fighting, specifically with people who don't have
appendages,
arms and hands. Yeah.
I think it's because there's nothing else for them to do. Like, this is all the Legionnaires do, is train.
Yeah.
They can't go make friendship bracelets.
They could have joined Lavinia's dance practice. They could like help build a castle to get destroyed in several hours. You know, they like do 2 or 3 other things that have the shadow of militarism hanging over them, but are not literally holding a sword, which is funny, I guess.
I wonder if Frank felt like the easiest way for the Mythics to prove their like coolness and like allegiance would be to prove that they can like hold their own in battle, which is the only thing that this camp seems to care about, you know? If we can get their sword fighting skills up to par as quickly as possible, then everyone will like respect them.
But they have other fighting capabilities too.
Yeah. But I guess we also wouldn't want them to be like the monsters attacking the... I'm using heavy air quotes here, which you can't tell because this is a podcast. We wouldn't want them to be, air quote, monsters attacking the heroes, end air quote, for the purpose of the activity either. But it's weird. It's tough. They're kind of grouped off. They're doing their things. Astarion and Johann are also being aggressively bit committers as well. Like everything out of Johann's mouth is still about tea, as no one is talking about that. You know, why not? We're going to lean into a little bit of levity before things go off the rails.
Nico and Will have a conversation with some of the newbies. We have not yet named them as elder demigods. That's about to come. But this is very much the elder demigod section, starting to accept like what our responsibilities are and why we have those responsibilities to the younger people. The younger kids are like, wow, like Nico and Will, you went to Tartarus. You must not be afraid of anything. And Nico and Will are like, actually, we're super afraid of everything. Here's that emotional intelligence we keep talking about, behavioral therapy time. Identifying our fear is actually there to protect us. We love our fear. We embrace our fear because Will says his fear tells him what he needs to pay attention to. So we should not be negating our fear. They're doing a good job at being elder counselors.
Yeah, very camp counselory, watching from the side, stepping in to replace people as sparring partners, and also just lecturing, just giving only lightly solicited advice in long form about life.
Yeah, and then the big thing that happens is Annabeth Tyson Part 2. We get Savannah, the legacy child camper, new to town, having a panic attack and flipping out while sparring with Ariel the Impusa. I'm curious what you guys thought about what this does or what this gives us that we didn't already get from Annabeth and Tyson. Did this kind of feel like hitting the same beat that we've already hit before?
You can feel there's definitely more trauma with it. Like, she's not just like, angry monsters or mythics or whatever. She's not like anti them. There's like something more personal here. And Annabeth had that too, but I feel like Annabeth didn't break down like that. I do think it is like the Annabeth Tyson redux. Like, I see that. Nope. I don't know. I think there's like that another undercurrent here with it as well. That's like explored later.
I think another important major difference is that we don't know Savannah, who is freaking out. With Annabeth, I think that it'll be interesting to see the way, like, we're going to get a lot of this character's development as we go through this set of chapters. My reaction at this point was strongly negative.
I was going to say, Carter's patience for Savannah, as I can read through this outline, is very thin.
Well, I think that when you don't know the character, my initial reaction to this is that even though it is a child, the frame of reference I would have is of an over-indexing on the importance of the victimhood of specifically white women as pertains to perceived threats from others, which is maybe not fair to read onto a 13-year-old, but I think that...
Whose name is Savannah, right? We're assuming she's white because her name is Savannah.
They describe her hair and her skin. I think that it seems...
Wait, do they?
Yeah. She has like natural red hair and freckles. I guess the distinction that I would make is that I didn't know this girl. I was not necessarily ready to give this person the benefit of the doubt beyond the fact that they're a child and that they might be able to not do what they're doing now in the future with help from other people. Whereas with Annabeth, I think that the attitude was a little bit more of like, this is not going to be long-term sustainable, but we should find out why this is happening because we have some sort of baseline understanding that she's a reasonable person who might have reactions to things that we can talk her through.
I think it gives the book a good specificity, like a specific relationship to latch onto on top of this big like social question of how are we going to get everybody to accept this group of mythics to... Oh, my sister's calling. I'm so popular with my family tonight. How do we get instead of just the entire camp to accept this entire group of mythics, like the one very specific relationship between one girl and one other girl that allows us like the plot, to feel specific and gives them something to do. So that we have a specific character who we know with a name who is anti-mythic besides Frank, who is medium anti-mythic.
Yeah. And it is realistic. And it is like a microcosm of the types of social dynamics that we're trying to allegorize in the book in general. Like the idea that somebody would be specifically, well, let me not get too ahead of myself. We'll come back to that when we actually find out what her whole deal is.
We're gonna get there. I mean, after this, everybody stops with the training. It's very awkward. We go to have dinner, and we kind of, I think, for the first time, name and start to move into this like allegory metaphor for how the mythics exist within the world of Camp Jupiter, which is very much that the mythics are nerds in the middle school / high school environment of like a 90s, 2000s sitcom or movie of Camp Jupiter. People don't want to sit with them at lunch, like there's a great moment later on in this section where Asterion is like, hey guys, and then like falls over himself and trips and his lunch falls off his tray and his horn stabs the tablecloth, like classic nerd behavior. And Nico is feeling very triggered by it all because Nico feels like not only is he stressed out by having to fix all of this himself, but he's being reminded and like dragged back to his early days at Camp Half-Blood when he also felt very othered, but almost like similar to an Annabeth recontextualizing her childhood memories and relationship with her parents. He is like, wait, did anybody really make me feel bad, or was I making myself feel bad? Was I making myself feel othered, or were people like actively bullying me? I definitely don't think people were actively bullying Nico at Camp Half-Blood to the degree that this is happening right now at Camp Jupiter.
Yes. Oh, certainly not. There's not, I think, like a fair level-wise parallel between Nico's experience at Camp Half-Blood to the extent that we understood it and what is happening now, which is like a full-on like creed-based isolation and whisper campaign. We're going to see some hate crimes. This is not what Nico was particularly, but I think it is. It still makes sense that he would have the visceral reaction that he does of like anger. Like he's responding to this, and basically he has to employ a lot of these new techniques to actively calm himself down, to not just say whatever he's feeling at any given moment, because he's trying to take on a leaderly obligation here. He's trying to say like what I'm going to say to these people is going to not just be whatever I feel or whatever is going to immediately gratify me, but what will socially ameliorate the situation, which is especially salient in this moment that I found like so striking, and that is really doubling down on the Savannah line, where there's like a small child that gets like passed through by Semele the Eidolon and kind of freaks out, and Nico in his mental monologue is mad at this child for overreacting. He's like about to accidentally summon the dead because of how mad he is by this, which is, I think, like, this is also kind of what we're getting with the whole Savannah situation of like his primary emotional reaction to this is really struggling, I guess, to calmly handle what he sees as irrelevant, self-important victimhood that doesn't make sense. Which is maybe over saying, because like this kid had like a thing happen to them that was unpleasant, but I think because it's piled on the other thing, the reaction is particularly intense. I don't know. I think it's an interesting insight that is helping this to, again, give it specificity, to not just have it be like a kind of standard rote story of acceptance. That the specific thread we're following through this is Nico trying to figure out how to not be like
emotionally overwhelmed.
To have his capacity for like thoughtful response overwhelmed by his reflexive anger at the way that these people are not being, like basic empathetic people responding to the mythics.
Yeah, I really wanted to touch on this too, especially with like how Nico's still learning how to deal with these like emotional like flare-ups. And him and Will were just telling, the people on the field, oh, you have to expect the unexpected. Like your emotions are going to come up in battle, but these emotions are coming up outside of battle, like on a day-to-day. And I've been like mentally tracking where Nico's rage comes up, and I made a couple of notes on the outline, but it's just like he said with the skeletons, like that comes up, and like there's a point later where he wants to strangle Johann, and he's just like points of his rage come up, and he's scary. You know, he's still like the Ghost King, and you know, he
Period.
yeah, his rage comes up, and I think he is overwhelmed, and that's sort of how it's like coming out. Is like, I don't know how to make you see what I see, and I'm angry about that. Like, why can't you have that empathy, like what you're saying? And so, yeah, his anger, I think, is something that I'm gonna keep tracking through this.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think a huge part about this book also is that is pain. Like we just spoke about that line about our fear, that it's important to acknowledge when those emotional flare-ups happen because they're telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that's the point of this book, but that's also the point of therapy, because this book is therapy.
Literally.
Like we're doing therapy on Nico through these Nico D'Angelo adventure books, and also doing therapy on ourselves. So yeah, in therapy, right, we're supposed to identify like these strong emotions. They're telling us something. It's not like we should ignore them or treat them as something negative, but they are existing outside of ourselves, like Cocoa Puffs, to tell us something and to help us process something. So how do we use those big, strong emotions as like personified, anthropomorphized as the Cocoa Puffs to help us physically? Post passing through child conversation with Semele.
Yeah, this is interesting. We're starting to, I guess, develop a separatist faction, maybe you could call it. Like we're building out that this idea that the mythics are not all 100% on the same page as you might imagine, and that there is a tension that they're experiencing. Some of them want to leave, but they're also lightly fleshing out, particularly more like Semele and Ariel, why they want to leave, but also what might be keeping them here. We're getting these vague notes, and Semele's giving us a little bit more of this, that they're being hunted.
I have a question for Carter, but also Amanda, since you haven't finished the book yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so obviously we have this mysterious setup of like Semele used to be a human, but she's really, 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 really old. So like, you know, she's the oldest out of this entire group of mythics, which means she's older than Asterion, which means she's like older than like Bronze Age Greece.
Like pre-Minoan.
Yeah, we must assume at some point in this book, like her identity will be revealed, at least in a way that will be helpful to the plot. So do you guys have guesses at this point as to like who she might be? Maybe not like a specific person, but like how she's going to serve the story.
I think it's going to be kind of like how Percy had the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, like all of like running through like Hecuba and like Gale, I think it was Gale, like going through their histories as a sort of like way of emotionally learning. I don't know what Nico and Co are going to emotionally learn, but I feel like there is something here that's going to help them unpack something. But I have no mythical knowledge of who she could be.
Side quest to help unpack something. Very good guess. Carter?
My first guess for like post-human character from antiquity who faded into basic non-existence is Echo, who already has a name. And I'm assuming, I mean, like, I wouldn't be that surprised, but I also don't feel like it is that neat at this point based on what we currently know. And I would not wager a meaningful amount on that. It's not even a hypothesis. It's literally just the first thing that occurred to me as I was reading earlier today.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. At the end of this chapter, Nico stops a hate crime. What a sad...
The first of multiple that Camp we will
Jupiter...
see in this set of chapters today.
Camp Jupiter is a freaking mess. And I understand that this is a really deep bias that like goes against their nature as demigods who are trained to hate monsters. But again, this kind of stuff would simply not happen at Camp Half-Blood. It just would not. Do you not agree, Carter?
I think it's worse here. I don't know. I like less of a nature thing. It's just that it's true that like all of these demigods have up until the current moment been trained to kill people of these creeds on site at Camp Half-Blood as well.
There's also only like 5 people at Camp Half-Blood, you know? So it's different. Like,
yes, that's true.
They can't get together to do organized hate crimes because there's only a few of them.
Hate crimes.
Okay, chapter 10, we have a little therapy catch-up session with Dionysus. This was fun. I almost felt like it was kind of early to have this in the book because we like just left Camp Half-Blood. How did you guys feel?
Yeah. It's a limited therapy session because it's so early. He can't solve that many issues. Like there are a lot of things that he kind of names for us to have as threads that we're following, even though we kind of had several of these named already also, but we don't resolve any of them because it's chapter 10.
Yeah. tracking Dionysus reworking as queer icon that he has always been within antiquity, a la bursting into a pile of pink glitter. He's now a Survivor superfan, to which we all say, ha, gay. What a great way of subtly coding this transformation of this character by indicating that he's watching Survivor. One of my favorite parts about this conversation, I think Carter, you wrote down like all of the quotes I wanted to write down in this outline before I could, but is the one where Nico's talking about the mythics and describing everything, and Mr. D is like, "Aw, that reminds me of you when you first got to camp." And Nico says, "Are you saying I was like a wolf?" And Mr. D says, "No, more like, what's that other territorial pack animal? A nerd." It just makes me go, and think about the way that, like, when we were 10, we also somehow found each other and like formed into a little pack of like extremely territorial, feral nerds that like we would not interact with anybody. We would not.
Yeah. Defensive posture, for sure.
Yeah. If we were watching a Cerebrellis music video at the lab table, nobody could interrupt that.
Real. I also wanted to add in that part where in like that paragraph, Nico laughed. It felt good. Like the jagged pieces inside of him were starting to mend. And I said, jagged pieces? K-pop demon hunters? Is that a... It's not a reference. But immediately this is what it sounds like started playing in my head. And I was like, you know what? I do think Nico would like K-pop demon hunters. I do think he'd relate to this.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Nico and Will would be a fan. Yeah, so this is where we name that Nico is an elder demigod now. And this is kind of fun because Nico's like, "Excuse me, elder? Like, I'm only a couple years old." And Mr. D is like, "You are their elder. Yeah, you are, even though you're only slightly older than them, you're their elder." He relates to Nico being like, we, like me as a counselor and you as an elder demigod, we have to help the newcomers adjust. And therefore, like, this is why Nico needs to take care of Savannah in particular, as Nico was like freaking out about Savannah's panic attack and everything. To which part of me says, well, is it Nico's job to, completely rewire Savannah's biases from childhood and whatnot? But then I was thinking about how this is a middle grade book. And if we're like in this book teaching children from the ages of 8 to 12 how to have conversations with other children who were raised in different households and like be able to relate to them and maybe change their minds about certain things, that is actually mind-boggling and very powerful. Like if some like 8-year-old reads this book and is like, "Oh, my friend who has a different perspective than me, I could talk to them about it." That's actually nuts because I can't find my peer at 26 years old and feel confident about changing their mind. But an 8-year-old,
it's different. It's a different proposition. I think the only reason to have a reservation about it is that Nico is wholly uncompensated and not that old. But the concept that an educator who comes across a prejudiced 12-year-old is responsible for turning them into a fair-minded person who will enter society as like a good collaborator and cohabitant, I think is right.
Big fans of a non-quest narrative within this universe and people who are always pushing for things to be non-quest focused. Shout out to Odyssey adaptation Summer. There's this quote on page 109. Mr. D says, "You have your whole life to take care of yourself. This isn't like a demigod quest, where you seek out an item, solve a puzzle, defeat some horrible creature, and then it's done. You're doing this every day, every moment of your life. In the same vein, you can't expect to create world peace between demigods and mythics in a matter of hours. Perhaps you shouldn't race toward a finish line that doesn't exist."
I said that's low-key what being in your 20s feels like. Because I feel like you have this whole quest where you're like, oh, I have to go to high school and I got to go to college and I got to do the thing. And then you graduate or you finish or you whatever. And you're like, okay, now I have to learn how to be a human. And I understand it's very different context here, but I read that and I was like, kind of how I feel like as I graduated college last year, I recently turned 24. I'm like, you just got to learn how to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Relatable for the elders who are reading this book.
At the start of the chapter, Will's like, leaving Nico to talk to Mr. D, and he kisses him on the head and says, just tell him what you told me. And I was like, did they have like a little mini therapy session with like Dr. Solus? Like, do you think Will pushed him to like talk to Mr. D? I caught that in my reread, and I was like, oh, do you think Nico was like talking to Will about how he feels so angry and like his emotions about all of this, and was like, therapy, go call your therapist, bro. Like, yeah, I just thought that was a sweet moment.
Yeah. As we move into chapter 11, things are bad. It's not going well. This is where Asterion trips and falls over his, lunch tray in the dining hall. Hilarious, sad, nerd, boo.
It's so sitcom.
It's so sitcom. You're so right. We have to rescue Orcus as the central issue for this chapter. Poor little Griffin Orcus was flying surveillance and flew too far, got overwhelmed, has never been in the real world before. Baby. Except for I feel bad, like, infantilizing this.
He's an adult. He's an adult. He just has not seen cars or highways before. It's unclear at this point how important this detail is, but he has not experienced the modern world and is giving us some light critique of the style of urbanization that came to the East Bay.
To me, that was kind of giving the what's a chicken nugget, where it's like these people are coming back from old times and they're like, what is the modern world? And where Hazel's like, what's a chicken nugget?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fish out of water. Again, but shout out to Hazel, because again, we need to remember how similar Hazel and Nico are to the Mythics, right? Specifically that they have such similar experiences to them. Carter, I'm assuming this was your note about shadow travel, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, Hazel shadow travels Nico. This is his first time getting towed through, and it's a funny description. He describes the sensation as violent, and this feels unique, but also like we have seen things like this, but like we've seen Percy getting dragged around through the shadows. We've seen Reyna getting dragged through the shadows from their own perspectives. It's funnier in this situation being like, oh damn, the tables got turned. This is unpleasant. This is not so good.
I also thought about Percy putting on the Yankees cap in the senior year adventures, where he with the tingling and all that. And I was just thinking about like demigods experiencing like powers from other perspectives. And I was like, there's so much more to explore here, but okay.
Yes. Specifically, so much to explore in the shadow travel multiverse
novel
to come. Would you like to read the quote, Carter?
It was the first time Nico had shadow traveled as someone else's passenger. The sensation was violent. He felt like a piece of origami being twisted and folded over and over. Was this what it was like for demigods of different parentages? He suddenly felt bad for ever having put anyone else through this.
On the subject of lore, we get to see Hazel up close and personal doing some mist magic in this chapter, which was so nice to revisit. There's not a ton of descriptive language, but I'm living for the crumbs. Nico talks about, the traffic cones shimmering is the word, shimmering into existence, which I love. Like a mirage shimmering into existence. And Hazel staring intently, quote, with her, quote, eyes tearing up and legs shaking from the effort. It literally just looks like her going... fantastic
for
I was
audio
definitely
media.
Thinking Scarlet Witch. Picture me going
trying to explode Erica with their mind.
You know the face.
It's kind of like well, I don't need to make a poop joke. Whatever.
Really, in the famous poop joke book.
It's the same sensation. More of that, though. I want more of that.
Yeah. We round out this chapter with Orcus making our first actual, basically organic connection between Mythics and Romans who are not Hazel. They're just kind of chatting about East Bay development and what his life experiences have been like. They're bonding. We can only assume that this is the way the rest of the book is going to go, with obviously hijinks and their caveats. But as far as like how we actually are changing people's minds, this is maybe 20-second insert on the political science literature. If you're trying to generally like get somebody to vote for a candidate, change their opinion on an issue, by far the most effective thing across lots of different empirical literatures is talking to a person who lives near you. If you personally feel overwhelmed and want to change the perspectives of people living near you because you think it might improve the nature of the world, it is probably effective. As far as like use of your time to achieve that goal. There are also other ways you could use your time that would say just directly save bees or whatever. That would also be valuable.
Yeah. Oh, and this is that moment, right, where Hazel, like Nico specifically flags like that this is an important
Yes.
moment that's happening as
First
Orcus is
time
like talking about.
we're organically seeing the word mythic being used as opposed to monster as a descriptor is his kind of main flag point.
Yeah, it's like after they rescue Orcus and Hazel comes running up to be like, "Oh, thank God, everything's okay." And Nico like gives her a look, like, "Hold on, something important is
they're
happening
cooking.
here." And Hazel's like, "Let me not interrupt." It's so true, like that at this moment specifically is popped up as being an important turning point in everyone's relationships.
Yeah, trauma bond.
We also have a little tidbit about Orcus's backstory here that I was questioning, where he says that the last time he was in the mortal world, he was being kept in a cage by a very powerful man. My first thought was, is this a Trials of Apollo reference? Like,
Yes. Book 2, it was Commodus when they were in Indianapolis. There were griffins in captivity. I thought about that. And it's interesting to have it literally juxtaposed, though, page by page, against him also saying he's never seen a car before, which doesn't mean that they're not compatible. Maybe there's going to be a description at some point down the line. I wouldn't know about the nature of captivity with Commodus that would have prevented him from seeing literally anything about the way Indianapolis, a very car-based city, is organized. But yeah, we can watch that space.
In this chapter, there's also the first drop mention of the Tessera, but I think we can discuss that when it comes back later, more specifically. I have thoughts about the world building of this new device. Let's take a quick ad break and we'll be right back.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, chapter 12, Nico describes himself as Nico D'Angelo, disaster detective. And this is not the last time in this book that the idea of this being sort of a mystery novel comes up. And I really like that as a framing for, if this is not a quest, and this is not a book about a quest, what is it? And I like the idea that it's a mystery. A little sleuthy demigod mystery. I would like to see more of those. I think that's fun. And there was a lot of mystery in The Sun and the Star as well, right? Like who's the voice that's been calling to him, etc. Playing that up, I think, is fun.
Yeah. Our first task in this chapter is to deal with hate crime number 2. This one feels a lot more intense, more aggressive. They were throwing apples at Johann initially, and now we have a Roman demigod who freezes himself trying to unleash an attack that he probably doesn't even understand against Johann. The nature of what he was trying to do is unclear to us. It was harmful. It was maybe violent, the precise contours of which we don't know. But so like Nico has to go like rescue this failed hate crimer.
Having conversations with people who live local to you.
I mean, it works.
Yeah, and specifically, the mechanism of the attempted failed hate crime is a dodecahedron, and we wanted to.
It's a dodecahedron.
Yeah, Erica, did you want to speak on this?
I do. Well, first of all, what a fun brand new piece of world building / lore / magic system. We've never heard of this before. It's the idea within this book is that it's something that is like old Roman technology that is just now coming back.
It feels adjacent to the whole Archimedes sphere situation we had going on in Heroes.
Exactly.
That it's like a tech callback.
The most important thing about this to me was that Nico is like, oh, like the dice for mythomagic. Do we have to roll it? Which, bam, whoa, pin in that. Mythomagic is a D20 based system. That is the first time we have ever heard that. All we've heard previously was figurines and cards. And now we know that there's also D20 involved. I'm sitting here, I'm waiting with cash in hand, with Apple Pay for when Disney wants to give me the Mythomagic game.
Let Erica consume.
Let me beta test. Let me get on a live stream and play Mythomagic for the mouse. We are here for you. I'm ready to roll a D20. But Nico aptly is like, do we roll it? And they're like, no, that's not how it works. But all we know so far is that it's used to like stop or trap demigods or monsters. And that's all we know so far. And I'm sure we'll find out more. But it's kind of fun to have something brand new that's not like directly pulled from mythology.
Yeah. Nico, in fact, does release the child, gives them a light threatening of disciplinary action, but then chooses not to do anything. I feel like we've been ramping up to this with the whole Savannah situation as well. But this is definitely giving us an idea of a more precise theory of change that Nico has. What is he trying to do? How is he going to get these Romans to agree with him? And his answer at this point seems to be a combination of light intimidation, but also very much giving them latitude, freedom. He is heavily erring on the side of saying they will come around. We're not going to punish anybody. We're not going to strong arm anybody. We're going to let them walk their way at their own pace into what we need to do. This is not a perspective that I think everyone might agree with after, again, coming into what was a foiled attempt at a violent hate crime, potentially, but also their children. Interesting. We will continue to watch that space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. IMO, absolutely hilarious aside that gets built into this chapter on page 124. Mm-hmm. Nico says, it's hard to tell. Will says, oh, trust me, I'm usually right. Nico says, you're so old and wise. Will says, okay, calm down. Nico says, deeply, deeply old. And Will says, aren't we only a year apart? Nico didn't know how to answer that, any more than he knew dodecahedrons from dinosaurs. Like Hazel, he'd been born in a different century. He hadn't really aged for most of that time, but he had been conscious and active. So when he was a teen, 100-year-old So was he a teen, 100-year-old fossil, or something in between? All he knew was that Will was his peer in every way that mattered. Hilarious way to like squash any kind of like age difference conversation or question about Nico being actually, decades old. Frankly, this is something I've never even remotely considered within this ship.
Yeah,
I don't know about y'all. Never thought about it
at all.
Had no idea Will was a year older than Nico. Didn't know.
I mean, he made the reference earlier in the book of being like, oh, I don't want to be old man D'Angelo, but I think he was just joking. Like this, there's like very emotionally like on the same level.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Now, is this a logic that can also be applied to Frank and Hazel? Are Frank and Hazel peers in every way that matters? No,
certainly
not at all.
Oh, good. Amanda agrees.
At first, I was kind of like, Frank has some growing to do, and then after hearing y'all talk about it, I was like, maybe they really are very different.
He has some growing to do. In a different relationship, maybe, or in no relationship.
Yeah, and she doesn't need to do that for him.
Yeah.
The thing that I felt most of all with Frank in this book, and specifically outlining these chapters and the next chapter when Frank comes back, is that, if anything, we have been right about Frank all along. Yeah. Because the decision to use Frank as the, political antagonist of this book means that we were right about him.
Yeah.
Like if Mark and Rick were like, well, obviously Frank is going to oppose this. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah. Quick flag here, Johan. Johan, whose whole personality up until this has been being polite, has finally learned what boundaries are. And this is going to be his new running gag, is actually learning precisely in application what that is. Phenomenal. Hilarious. I love it. I was getting a little tired. This is going to be a great gag for me for the next few chapters.
It's cute.
It's cute.
I could use the reminder also of what a boundary is. I needed this. Carter's like, this is so annoying. And meanwhile, I'm like, wow, this is so relatable. Good stuff.
Ooh, okay. It's time for Savannah again. Everybody, seatbelts on.
No.
Girl.
Oh boy.
Yeah. First of all, why did anybody
doesn't
think
go
this was
well.
a good idea? Yeah. Immediately, everyone here, we all knew. Listener, you knew that this was not going to work out. She had a screaming panic attack after round 1. Why are we doing round 2? Why is it through combat? You didn't think, oh, maybe they have coffee together to figure out what all went down. No, we are back to mock sword fighting, antagonism, training together. No conversation in between, just back in the deep end. And it seems, maybe, for a little bit, like it's going well until it really doesn't.
Quote, she killed my parents. It was you, comma, or your kind.
Oh my God.
The us versus them has never been stronger than in this moment. It's so...
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Like, that's the real, like, discordant part of this book, I feel. Like, sure, it's the Court of the Dead, but I feel like this is, like, if there is an antagonist that's not whatever the main antagonist is, like, it's kind of this idea.
Yeah. I hesitate to go too hard on this child, but they... Is this not...
Do you hesitate?
Okay, caveat, this is a child, and I do believe that as a child, it is very possible for them to, in not that much time, not that much effort, become a good person with non-toxic ideals. However, ideologically, the picture that we're being painted here is hearkening back to this legacy of like, basically taking a personal harm that happened to you and ascribing that to an entire minoritized community with no power, much in the way that has frequently been done in the United States justice system throughout history, to incarcerate, to kill, particularly Black men throughout history and up into very recent history. Again, that's not what this literal child is doing. However, that is, I think that's the importance of like what the book's intervention is. That like if you meet a person who has these types of ideas, they could become a perpetuator of those kinds of things, or because they're a child, you could get in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Ariel's over it. Ariel remains my favorite. And she, like, day 1 did not go well for her. She did not have a good time in that experience. She, like, was crying at home because a girl had a panic attack from looking at her. She didn't do anything. It's not her fault. What is she supposed to take away from that? And now she returns and gets whacked. Blood is drawn. And she, at this point, is leaning further into the separatism speculation. She really feels like she's at the end of her wits. How is this going to work out? It's probably not. Maybe we have to leave.
Super delightfully clean writing to melt Ariel taking a stance of we have to leave in with revealing what this voice is that's been speaking to Nico and the Mythics in their dreams. So she says, this is why we have to leave. I don't care if they catch me. I don't care if they judge me. It couldn't be worse than the judgment I'm getting right here. Who's they exactly?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh.
They didn't want to see her succeed. It's true.
They, monsters, all monsters. Nico freaking out about how he's going to turn this child anti-racist in 48 hours, but we're going to watch him do it.
Yeah. And again, like, I think that I feel like, to me, at the stage of life that I'm in, the representation I was looking for is a thing of dealing with somebody who is developmentally in an earlier spot than you, saying really terrible things, and understanding that at that point, your job for the good of society is to not be like, oh, no, you're racist. Which he could have done, and he would have been correct. But watching him go through the emotional processing that is required to not bite this child's head off, I felt seen.
Yeah. Trying to say, we're playing the long game, and we're going to put in the rehabilitative work necessary here to speak to people who live in our local area and change their minds.
Yes.
Although Nico, he's not local to the Bay Area.
Yeah. If you are local to the Bay Area, there's some good canvassing for you to do.
Speak on it, Carter. Speak on it. This episode is coming out in 2 days.
Well, if you live in the Bay Area, you want to canvass people's doors, you should go to shoika.us and find out about a congressional candidate who's doing some cool stuff and is door knocking every Saturday and Sunday. That's my pitch.
We'll link it in our show notes. Okay, chapter 13. Let's get into it. Frank is here. He's back, and he's got some very interesting things to say. I don't know. I'm just going to read page 130 because it's so interesting, and I think we should all sit with it. And again, how we were right all along. Frank sighed. Hazel, you know I love you, and you know that I think you did the right thing by letting Asterion and his friends stay here. Her face fell. But now you think I should ask them to leave. No, he said. I mean, gods, I don't know. It's just, as praetor, I have to put the safety of our demigods first, right? Okay, so he does mean that. Hazel glared at her boyfriend. Do you think I'm not? That's not what I said. Hey, Will interceded. We're all on the same side here. Let's take a breath. Hazel scowled, clearly in no mood to take a breath. Ariel did nothing wrong. Can we at least agree that she is not the Empusa who killed Savannah's parents? Of course she isn't, said Frank. But then he hesitated. I think? Nico shook his head. I saw the way she reacted when Savannah accused her. She was surprised, shocked, even insulted. There's no way it was her. And yet, Frank scanned the room. And yet? What exactly does and yet mean, Frank?
This is an enemy of the people. These are literally, again, children, caveat. This is like allegorically a pretty on the nose recreation of like ethno-nationalist talking points. The idea that like if you're here first, you matter more. The idea that we have a responsibility to like a like ethnically defined group of people as opposed to other people. And this idea that like fundamentally like disruption that comes with different people with different backgrounds interacting is the fault of whoever's newer, and that it's a problem, and that there's some sort of fundamental irreconcilable maleficence that comes out of that is like harmful to society, is basically what he's saying. Like at a certain level, he's like, well, even if she's not lying, even if like she didn't do anything wrong in this context or any other context, these people are a little bit mad. And so what do you want me to do? Is essentially what oh well means in this context, right? He's like, they're a little mad, so I guess that invalidates everything else you said, invalidates the social mission that we have. But again, important to represent this. There are non-allegorical ethno-nationalists in the world doing a lot of stuff.
When Asterion shows up, he's like, listen, guys, it's not Ariel who killed Savannah's parents. He says, Ariel is my oldest friend. She was, in fact, the one who convinced me that we did not have to hunt and kill demigods. So, like, factually, this is just not her. She has been mythic, not monster, for a long time now. And because when this information is shared, quote, Hazel gave Frank a pointed look. Nico tried not to do the same because he didn't want to kill the guy with pointed looks.
No.
Excellent line. Excellent line.
Maybe if he got enough side-eye,
Killing
he'd
a guy,
realize that he was wrong.
I'm obsessed with the moment of sibling side-eye in this moment, being like,
yeah.
Guys, just poor Hazel. God, to be already in a leadership position in this moment, trying to deal with this very complex situation, and then on top of it, having to deal with her idiot ethnocentrist boyfriend. What in the world? No wonder she's like scowling constantly and like stressed out in the descriptions in this book.
Well, also think about
this is not the
gender balances too, of like if they hear that their man praetor is saying these things versus the woman, and it's like, are they going to have implicit biases in this already Camp Jupiter militaristic? Are they going to lean a certain way based on it? Like,
absolutely. Which is just to say, I love that Hazel's in this book, and I would have it no other way. Mm-hmm. I think that this doesn't count as the Hazel book. I think that the Hazel book is a Hazel book. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Yes. It's a book of her doing magic and feeling joy, right? It's not a book of her babysitting her boyfriend.
Literally. Yes.
Yes.
And so Frank admits that his anger maybe gets the best of him and clouds his judgment in moments like this. And then Asterion says, that is understandable, demigod. We mythics are constantly in touch with our anger, and we know how easily it can distract us. And so for the first time, Frank is finding a way to feel empathy with the mythics and realizing that, oh, maybe they have a lot in common. Maybe their anger keeps them connected. Also, Frank, like, as a shapeshifter, has like these experiences that can connect him with the mythics and not understanding his powers.
He specifically was an out-of-control shapeshifter for a long time, which some people might have ungenerously referred to as a monster. What do you call a person who turns into a hippo and accidentally destroys the place that you live? Maybe a monster, depending on the society you're living in. I don't know. It really does not speak well for him that he had to literally be like, I had that exact experience to the T to be able to not hate you and think that you have no place in society. But I guess he got there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it just took him a second. It took him a second. But he, this is good. This is going to be a tide turn for Frank, I think, in this chapter. It made me feel, it made me feel like what I needed, my little headcanon desire for Frank's redemption arc out of this book. From Frank Argo 2, we were already not fans. But then some point between the Argo 2 and now, he's been listening to a lot of podcasts, and not Seaweed Brain. He's been listening to podcasts. He's been lightly radicalized, right, towards the right. And in order to work him out of that, he needed 1, basic empathy, which is great. 2, to talk to people who live locally to him. Amazing. And 3, I think that we could frame his anger and his relationship with his anger into more of, instead of an anger about the wrong things clouding his judgment, like what we're doing with the Cocoa Puffs and with our emotions in this book, thinking about the proper use of anger and how anger is actually important when it comes to things like some might say anger is a gift. Yes. Important in our fight against things that are wrong. When I thought about this, I was just thinking about how in yoga specifically, there's this relationship between nonviolence and ahimsa and tapas, this relationship between you don't want to have violence, you don't want to have negative thoughts towards people or harmful thoughts, but at the same time, anger and pushing back against people is important. And that kind of fiery drive is what pushes us to keep the world a better place and fight against injustice and everything. And so if we could get Frank towards fiery burning rage against injustice to channel his anger into that, as opposed to, I don't know, toxic masculinity and brr, 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 I'm gonna hit stuff, that would be great.
I was also going to say, you have if he wants to relate his anger to his parentage, and maybe you're talking about toxic masculinity, maybe that's his daddy issues coming out a little bit. I don't know. Something you said there about that.
Yeah, because I don't think that all children of Mars and of Aries are irredeemably violent.
No, not at all.
People,
We're not birth determinists, unlike Frank.
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where his journey goes.
Yeah, we're having this debrief conversation. I think it's Johan who says, quote, "It seems demigod brains are almost mythic-like in their complexity," when he finds out for the first time that people have dreams. That took me out. That was so stupid,
I know,
so
I said
simple,
last
but
week.
so funny.
I know, I compared him to Mr. Tumnus last week, but this week what he was giving was Pleakley. The whole
100%.
demigod brains. I must write this down. It was giving, a mosquito has chosen me as her perch. Same energy, identical.
Yes. Strong. But specifically, the reason why we're bringing up the dreams is because we're zeroing in on the judge. The Court of the Dead in the title is linking this up. Nico and Asterion and Johan, and I think all of the mythics have been seeing in their dreams overlapping things. There's a judge. There's somebody who, there's a little bit vague, but punishes mythics who attempt to not live, quote unquote, as monsters anymore. We still don't have any details. It's just that we all know this. We're watching this space beyond Nico having dreams about this now as something that is specifically posing a threat to the mythics.
Yes, and because something is now posing a threat, our little son of Aries, our little son of Mars is whoa, fight, conflict?
Yeah.
I have to side with protecting my guests. So now we have, in one chapter, we have totally switched Frank's perspective through basic empathy and the idea of an incoming fight. Who he needs to protect is going to be the guests of his legion, and if that's what it takes.
This is also something that they say in the persuasion literature, that people have inherent value frames, and that generally you can persuade people to support the same things as you, but you can't change the core thing. And so for Frank, maybe what that looks like is saying your most core value is militaristic defense of the place that you are in right now. And now what that looks like is you agreeing with me about mythics having rights. So we got him there.
But sadly, you know what? It's too late because Ariel's gone. She's gone, and it doesn't look like she left of her own accord, because why would she leave the hand-knit sweater Asterion made for her that says, I love demigods? That line made me want to cry.
Yeah. Especially given this new backstory we have about Asterion and Ariel, that they're like the oldest besties.
Twink.
And a redhead. The concept of referring to the Minotaur as a twink. Oh.
A twunk.
Sure.
They're an iconic duo.
Yeah, iconic duo, gay boy and like mean, maybe lesbian. Yeah.
I'm really sorry if that reference doesn't make sense to anybody. Look it up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just tough. Everybody's debriefing. The separatist contingent, which is mostly Semele, are more fired up than ever, of being like, well, we thought we were here for protection. We thought that we were going to get chased down if we left, but clearly we're going to chase down no matter what. So why am I putting up with your nonsense? Which is a fair question.
Yeah. We don't know what's going on. Nico's feeling a presence. He's likening it to the presence of Nyx when they were in Tartarus. And he's noticing that the puffs are really agitated. Almost like my vision for this was like dogs before a storm, right? Like they're freaking out, like something is about to happen. Something's coming.
Yes.
And that brings us to the end of the chapter.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the very end of this chapter is that there's this conversation like, should we hide? We better stay inside. Like, we don't know like what took Ariel, what's going on. And then they're like, the mythics are like, what? No, like, what is that going to do? We're not going to hide. Like, that's not helpful. It's not productive. We need to continue to be productive members of society. And Quinoa's like, I have to go, to my job interview at the kindergarten. So we're going to do business as usual. We're not going to let our fear guide us in this moment. And we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts, Amanda?
Final thoughts overall. I did have something I wanted to mention overall it came up a little bit in the Discord, that the lovely Patreon Discord, love those people, shout out them. We talked a little bit about the Puff's pronouns. For some reason, this came up in general discourse. There's one specific page, I forgot to go find it, but I want to find it. Puffs may or may not use multiple pronouns, like low-key, there was one point where they referred to one of them as he and it in the same page. And I don't know. I think this is important representation. Many people use multiple pronouns. It was just people ranting on Twitter. Robert, the damn mom page, was talking about it. was talking about like Reddit discourse in general. And I wanted to add that I just think it's fun and inconsequential, but puff pronouns I think are fun. They're so cute. I love getting more of them. That was something else I wanted to throw in.
Wait, brand new question to ask our guests at the end of this run of Court of the Dead episodes. What puff would you have? What's your puff?
So far, I've been attached to loneliness because of the one big eye. It's giving like a different like Mike Wazowski in a way, but of like a pleading like cat or dog, like a little puppy kitty with the one big eye, loneliness. So cute, so adorable. I love it.
Yes, but if you had to like create a new puff.
Oh, a new puff. Does uncertainty count? Is that like
I love that. Doubt comes in. Doubt puff.
With the Hades sound reference, yes.
Love doubt puff, absolutely. Amanda, would you like to tell people where they can find you on the internet, or have any other things you would like to promote in lieu of that?
Yeah, instead of taking the time to look me up, you should look up your local native plants and flowers that help support your native pollinators. Yeah! With that being said,
native ecosystems are so important!
Yes, look that up.
I love that. Thank you so much. Carter's got to go to work, and we'll see y'all next week for another arbitrary set of chapters of the Court of the Dead that we may or may not tell you about before we cover them. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you so much. Have me back anytime.
Yay. Bye, y'all.
Bye.